Good afternoon, you're watching Arirang News, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Kwon Jang-ho, and it's good to have you with us. It looks like the North Korea-U.S. talks are back on, with U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo confirming that he will be meeting with North Korean senior official Kim Yong-chol in New York this week after the midterm elections. But will it lead to progress on denuclearization talks, or the impasse continue? We'll look at what's at stake later in the show, but first we start with the latest headlines by turning to Devin Whiting at the News Centre. Devin?
Hi, Jung-ho. On the domestic front, South Korea's political parties held a big meeting today with the administration, the first meeting of what they hope will be an ongoing discussion. The goal is, in this consultation, to get the country's political forces working together. Our presidential office correspondent Shin Se-min reports.
The leaders of the 5 political parties and members of the government were brought to one table by issues that have been gripping the nation, from domestic affairs like the economy to diplomacy with North Korea. It was for the inaugural meeting of the Joint Policy Consultative Meeting. And in it, the leaders put their heads together to find ways to support small and mid-sized businesses and revitalize the economy, namely by making employment processes fairer and by creating more jobs. On domestic issues, the parties and the government agreed to work to secure the people's safety, to expand the budget for supporting childbirth, and to rectify unjust practices in businesses. The parties have also agreed to look at lowering the voting age from 19 to 18 and to take up bills related to the Moon administration's push for decentralization. On diplomacy, they have agreed to give bipartisan support to lasting peace and denuclearization on the divided peninsula. The parties have also said yes to the 2 Koreas holding a meeting of their parliaments. Monday's meeting was the first of its kind, and the president expressed hope that the format will promote cooperation between the parties and the government.
특히 요즘 우리 경제와 민생이 어렵고 또 남북 관계를 비롯해서 국제 정세가 아주 급변하고 있는 그런 상황이기 때문에 협치를 바라는 그런 국민들의 기대가 매우 높습니다. 오늘 그 기대에 부응하는 그런 저희가 되었으면 합니다.
The goal is to hold the joint consultative meeting once every quarter in the interest of joint governance by the ruling and opposition parties and the government, as the president had initially proposed. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
In the National Assembly, meanwhile, the Budget Committee is deliberating the government's spending plan for next year. Top government officials explained the budget in detail earlier today and are now being questioned by lawmakers. The government has proposed a record budget of roughly $420 billion, representing an increase of 9.7% from this year. The Assembly has until November 30th to review and pass the budget, but is probably going to be pretty contentious. The ruling party wants to pass the budget the government has asked for, but the opposition wants to make big cuts, especially to the budget for short-term jobs and for projects with North Korea. President Moon will attend a series of regional summits later this month in Singapore and Papua New Guinea. The presidential office confirmed on Monday that President Moon will be spending 4 days from the 13th in Singapore, taking part in the East Asia Summit and other summits with the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. And for 2 days from the 17th, the president will attend this year's APEC Summit in Papua New Guinea, where he will call for international support for his peace policy. Here's the Blue House spokesperson.
Through multiple summits, President Moon is set to firm up support from respective nations on establishing lasting peace and prosperity in the region while strengthening friendly cooperation.
The spokesperson also said the trip shows the importance to Seoul of improving cooperation with other East Asian countries. South and North Korea have begun a joint field survey this afternoon on the peaceful use of the waterways along their border. The inspection started at around 3 p.m. Korea time. It's part of the military agreement reached in September, in which the 2 sides agreed to use together the estuaries of the Hangang and Imjingang rivers. According to Seoul's defense ministry, the team inspecting the estuaries is made up of 10 people from each side, including military and maritime officials and civil waterway experts. The Defense Ministry also said it plans to complete the field survey of the 70-kilometer-long zone by the end of this year. Once that's done, nautical charts of the zone will be made available so private vessels can use it. South and North Korea will hold talks this Wednesday about working together on health issues like infectious diseases in another follow-up to the Pyongyang Joint Declaration. According to Seoul's Unification Ministry, the discussion will take place at the Inter-Korean Liaison Office in Kaesong. The South Korean delegation will be led by Kwon Duk-chul, Vice Minister of Health and Welfare, and the North Korean delegation by Bang Myung-soo, a senior North Korean health official. The two sides are expected to discuss joint measures against infectious diseases and explain their goals on a wide range of health issues. And South Korean civic groups from across the political spectrum are engaging in a formal series of discussions to promote a greater understanding of the different views and opinions on unification with North Korea. It's part of President Moon's plans to form a consensus on unification policy. Oh Jung-hee tells us more.
South Korea's conservatives and liberals are coming together to have open conversations about their different views on North Korea and set the foundations for possible unification. Major civic groups from both sides of the political spectrum, as well as neutrals and religious groups, launched a civilian movement last week to promote a social dialogue on unification. Each session of social dialogue brings almost 100 ordinary citizens and activists together for a frank chat on North Korea and the future of the two Koreas. The ultimate aim of this joint movement by the government and civil society is to come up with a national unification contract, President Moon Jae-in's goal of forming a public consensus on unification in North Korea.
Citizens of South Korea should, of course, be part of formulating unification and North Korea policies. And the public agreed that policies should be in accordance with the national consensus, despite changes of administration.
Unification and North Korea policies have most of the time been a source of conflict within South Korea. And though the general public's interest on unification has risen thanks to recent developments, North Korea is still not an easy or casual topic to discuss. This is because of the politically sensitive nature of the topic and also the growing indifference toward North Korea, especially among the younger generation.
I do feel some sort of ethnic connection with North Koreans, but that's it. People around my age don't really think about North Korea, and it's not comfortable talking about it.
It's most crucial to gather various opinions about what unification is. And the government will continue its publicizing process until the end of this administration at least, and come up with a draft consensus that South Koreans can agree to at the minimum extent. It's impossible to come up with a perfect draft that everybody's satisfied with.
It is not clear if this movement will actually lead to any written public agreement on unification, but the process of bringing people in to discuss issues and understand various viewpoints could be a good first step for the government in formulating consensus-based unification policies. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
I'm Devin Whiting, and those are your news headlines.
After weeks of speculation, we now have confirmation U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo will be meeting this week with Kim Yong-chol, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's closest aide, in New York. Issues up for discussion are denuclearization and a second summit between Kim Jong-un and U.S. President Donald Trump. But will there be any breakthroughs? Lee Seung-jae details the latest developments.
In an interview with CBS's Face the Nation on Sunday, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo confirmed his meeting with Kim Yong-chol, whom he called North Korea's #2, will happen sometime this week in New York. Pompeo said he expects the two sides to make some real progress, including an effort to make sure the upcoming second summit between Kim Jong-un and President Trump can take place, where substantial steps toward denuclearization can be achieved. Despite the upcoming meeting, the two sides continue to be at odds over the heavy sanctions on the regime. Last week, North Korea's foreign ministry warned Pyongyang will seriously consider reviving its nuclear weapons program unless U.S. sanctions are lifted. However, Pompeo made it clear on Fox News Sunday that there would be no economic relief until the U.S. had achieved its ultimate objective. Meanwhile, news of the meeting between Pompeo and Kim Yong-chol and the possibility of another summit comes just 2 days before the crucial midterm elections in the U.S., widely seen as a referendum on President Trump. Trump has often pointed to the détente with North Korea as a signature foreign policy accomplishment. Pompeo emphasized in both television appearances that there have been no missile or nuclear tests since the Singapore summit some 5 months ago. Kim Yong-chol, a former top intelligence chief, visited the White House in the run-up to the Singapore summit and has been Pompeo's counterpart in the months since. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now for more on that, we have with us Dr. Pong Young-sik from the Yonsei Institute for North Korean Studies. It's good to have you with us on the show back again.
Happy to be here again.
Pompeo has been hinting for a few days now that a meeting with a senior North Korean official would be happening sometime this week. And now we've got confirmation finally that it's going to be Kim Yong-chol, that's a North Korean senior official who's been Kim Jong-un's right-hand man so far when it comes to dealing with the United States. What does this tell us?
Well, there was a speculation that Kim Yong-chol might have been replaced by somebody else to represent the North Korean leadership in the scheduled meeting with Secretary Mike Pompeo. For instance, Supreme Leader's sister Kim Yo-jong. I believe that this will be kind of a last opportunity or another opportunity given to Mr. Kim Yong-chol by Supreme Leader of North Korea, Mr. Kim Jong-un, to make a breakthrough with the United States in terms of getting the concrete result in favor of easing existing economic sanctions and other measures that are conducive to the realization of North Korea's central policy, which is simultaneous pursuit of nuclear weapon development and economic development. If the talks do not go well, then the fate of Kim Yong-chol as a main appointment of the Kim Jong-un government of North Korea might be in jeopardy. Because Kim Yong-chol himself is not a Korea diplomat or expert on nuclear affairs. Kim Yong-chol's main merit is that he has been deeply involved in the negotiation with the United States on nuclear missile program so far. But if Kim Yong-chol's capital is estimated by the Supreme Leadership not sufficient or no longer effective, then we cannot rule out the possibility that he will be replaced as a main appointment to negotiate with the United States.
Do you think there can be any breakthroughs in the denuclearization negotiations during this meeting? I mean, what outcomes can they reasonably reach?
Well, it's primarily dependent upon what kind of package Mr. Kim Yong-chol is going to carry with him and propose to the Trump administration in the meeting. The attractiveness and the size of the package provided by North Korean delegation will determine the success or failure of this meeting between Washington and Pyongyang. But I'm slightly cautious to predict any breakthrough coming out of this meeting because there is no sign that North Korean leadership has sufficiently and decidedly departed from its long-standing policy line, which is salami tactics. North Korean leadership is still unwilling to make any major concessions on the nuclear and missile programs, but still insisting that the ball is in the court of the Trump administration to make major concessions, such as lifting economic sanctions. So I don't think North Korean delegation is prepared to provide a kind of a big present to the U.S. government that will help change the existing stance of the Trump administration, which is that unless North Korean government is going to take concrete measures of denuclearization in verifiable way, there will be no lifting of economic sanctions.
Of course, recently, which is quite startling as well, so a North Korean commentary, a North Korean state media carried a commentary by a foreign ministry official saying that North Koreans might even be prepared to carry on its nuclear program and at the same time as its economic development, carrying out the Pyeongjin policy, as they called it. How seriously should we take this threat, or is this just a bluff before they go into these negotiations this week?
I double-checked the source of this news, and it was made by a low-rank government official belonging to the Foreign Ministry of North Korean government, who's mainly in charge of research. The report was carried out by the Korean Central News Agency, the mouthpiece of the North Korean government, that the definition of the Pyeongjin policy, the simultaneous pursuit of nuclear weapon development and economic development, may be inevitably redefined if there will be no reciprocation from Washington. Judging from the facts that, first, it was a remark made by a rather low-rank government official in the foreign ministry, not one of those major government officials in the department, and two, it was rather ambiguously phrased. Means that North Korean government is not really ready to walk out of this negotiation room. Because North Koreans remember that when the personal letter carried by Mr. Kim Yong-chol, which threatened the Trump administration prior to the actual realization of the Singapore summit meeting in June, that if the United States would not change its long-standing policy toward North Korea with such a hostility, then it could not be ruled out that Pyongyang had to resume its missile and nuclear programs. After receiving the letter, according to the Washington Post reports, that President Trump ordered to cancel the scheduled summit meeting and issued now famous personal letter to the chairperson of the North Korea, Kim Jong-un. So I don't think North Korean government is ready to repeat such a gamble even before the meeting between Mr. Kim Yong-chol and Secretary Mike Pompeo is going to happen. If North Korea is going to actually going back to the nuclear weapon and missile developmental programs, then there must be very clear signs for North Korean leadership that no more talks, no more negotiation would be helpful. But I don't think North Korean government's strategic calculation has reached that point.
So that commentary was made by a lower level foreign ministry official from the North Korean side. But on the other side, Pompeo, the head of the foreign department side in the US, now he's pretty much straight out that that only denuclearization will lead to lifting of sanctions.
Verifiable denuclearization.
Sure. He said verification, if I quote here, is a prerequisite before any lifting of sanctions on North Korea. Do you think there is any room for negotiation on this, actually, though, with North Korea? And if not, how does North Korea have to negotiate then when they talk with the US?
There's sufficient room for negotiation between Washington and Pyongyang because both sides may work on how to define verification of existing weapon programs and facilities inside North Korea. Where to start? What to begin with? Are you going to allow the inspection by experts and the U.S. government officials on which site? Yongbyon included? Or will it be just limited to Dongchangri or the Punggye nuclear test site? So there is a room for maneuvering for North Korean government officials to persuade Secretary Pompeo and other government officials in the United States in charge of denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula to make a positive first steps. But my concern is that the United States demand is far more than just North Korean government allowing verifiable and reliable inspections on those three sites, because it is believed that the majority of the nuclear and missile capabilities and facilities of North Korea exist outside those three test sites.
So there's going to be a lot for them to look for as well. actually, for some expected this meeting to have little progress towards denuclearization. And actually, this meeting is about arranging details for a second Trump-Kim summit, perhaps next year. Would you agree with some of this assessment that actually this is the Trump summit is perhaps more the key agenda for this meeting?
Absolutely. This meeting between Mr. Kim and Secretary Pompeo is a kind of preparatory step for the scheduled summit meeting, the second summit meeting between two top leaders of the countries. But depending upon the outcomes of this meeting between Secretary Pompeo and Vice President Kim Yong-chol, United States' approach to the second summit meeting with North Korean leadership will be greatly changed. So it is up to North Korean government how much concessions Pyongyang is ready to make in order to persuade the United States government to maintain meaningful engagement with North Korea. Because who knows, after the midterm election on the 6th of November in local time in the United States, if the President Trump thinks that he is no longer bound by the pressure of the midterm election, then he could do whatever he wants. He might continue to be rather softer and patient, more patient toward Pyongyang, and in terms of playing the waiting game. Or President Trump would declare that I have given more than enough time to Kim Jong-un and North Korean leadership, but they fail to demonstrate the genuine intention for denuclearization. They lost the opportunity. So I will go back to the old Trump, who declared that the little rocket man is on his suicide mission, and if North Korea is going to make grave mistakes, then there will be complete destruction of the country. So who knows which Donald Trump is going to appear after the midterm election on the 6th.
That's perhaps slightly concerning for your prediction, but let's try to be a little bit more positive. If we turn to what's happening on the Korean Peninsula right now, the two Koreas are actually carrying out various projects that they've promised to do. For example, the inspection of waterways, of the border estuaries of the Hangang and the Imjingang River, as well as the dismantling of the DMZ guard posts. That seemed to have be going well so far today. Both sides raising big yellow flags to make sure that neither sides get any misinterpretation of what's going on there. But then at the same time also, we see these South Koreans, the US joint military exercises which are restarting again. I mean, how does this all fit in? I mean, how important are these US joint exercises? And is it a risk that could antagonize the North Koreans at this delicate time?
Well, we have to wait and see. But I think United States and South Korea are in very good cooperative relations, not to antagonize North Korean leadership prematurely. A good example is the decision by both sides to suspend the joint air exercise, Vigilant Ace. But the resumption of the marine exercise is to assure the concerned public in South Korea whether such measures intended to reduce the military tension across the demilitarized zone may hamper the military readiness of South Korea against any type of provocations or potential aggression from the North. So it is a delicate balancing between maintaining the line of communication and the spirit of negotiation with North Korea. As Secretary of Defense of the United States said that we decided to suspend the Vigilant Ace joint air exercise in order to give diplomacy still a chance to succeed. But at the same time, we need to alleviate the concern and fear among South Korean public whether we are making too much concessions in terms of deterrence against North Korean military threats too fast. So it is a political decision, but at the same time, it is very strategically useful steps in terms of giving us a chance to probe the true intentions of North Korean leadership, whether North Korean government is ready to work together to reduce military tension, regardless of progress of denuclearization or progress of building sustainable peace regime on the Korean Peninsula or lifting economic sanctions. But whether North Korean leadership is ready to take any small steps in the right direction to bring any measurable peace on the Korean Peninsula.
Well, yes, let's hope at least brings some reassurance that South Korea keeps its defense readiness while also trying to engage with North Korea as well. And that's where we have time for. Thank you for coming in as always, and it's always great to get your insights.
Thank you.
And that's where we'll close out our show. You can tune in to our later newscasts for the latest updates from Korea and around the world, as well as our content online at arirang.com. I'll be back tomorrow, but in the meantime, thank you for watching and hope you have a great day. Goodbye.